At 19 years old, I made a decision that I thought decent women wouldn't do. I was a prostitute. I had sex for money.
What happened when your mom found out that you were a sex worker?
To be completely transparent, I don't have a relationship with her today. I felt like a monster. And that's what shame does. It really makes things so black and white. You are good or you are bad. And in my view, I was bad.
You were ghosted after your first orgasm.
When someone rejects you, in some ways it does make them more appealing. Isn't that horrible?
You say women are more likely to feel ashamed of themselves than men. Why do you think that's the case? What is the cure to shame? Your deepest shame will lead you to your greatest gift. That's according to our guest today. Welcome back to another episode of Unshaming, a podcast where we talk about everything we're ashamed of and why. I'm your host, Jordan Gonsalves. I'm a journalist who reports on shame and its impact on America. Today's guest is Melissa Petro, a fellow journalist who reports on shame, but she's also the author of Shame on You, a book about how almost every problem we have in life is because of shame. Why it's so hard to move on from people who hurt you, why it's so hard for you to set boundaries, and why it's so hard to stand up for yourself. Melissa has been published in Time and Rolling Stone and many more, but just like me, she has a shame origin story that changed the course of her life. She was a former sex worker who became a public school teacher. But in 2010, while she was teaching, the New York Post published a series of degrading articles about her being a former sex worker, with the aim of getting her fired. The New York City Department of Education found out and was even ready to bring charges against her. She ended up losing her job because of shame. But what she gained was even more valuable. She learned the key to healing from shame. And the key isn't to run from it. It's to build a relationship with it. And by the end of today's episode, you'll learn how to do that too. You'll also learn where shame comes from in our culture and how to interrupt a shame spiral. But you'll also learn how your shame will lead you to your greatest gift, your purpose. People always say everything you've always wanted is on the other side of fear. But I think everything you've truly ever wanted is on the other side of shame. I mean, really think about that for a second. Like, let that marinate. Shame is something we all carry, yet something very few of us know how to name, and even fewer know how to manage. But before we get to tonight's Unshaming dinner party, I need your help. I want you to be a part of the Unshaming community. Comment below where you think your first experiences around shame came from. And don't forget to subscribe to Unshaming wherever you are getting this podcast so you never miss an episode. Grab your dinner, grab your drink, get cozy. I'm Jordan Gonsalves, and this is Unshaming. Melissa Petro, welcome to the Unshaming podcast, the Unshaming dinner party.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are a guest tonight. And I was so excited to have you on because in this world of shame, there are really only a couple of us. Brene Brown has kind of dominated the field in terms of research and academia. But there are very few of us that are kind of coming at this topic from the lens of storytelling and the lens of journalism and culture, and you're one of them.
And leading with lived experience, where if you really put yourself on the line, that's
exactly
valuable.
The way that I kind of entered into this field was through lived experience. Right. And so I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through what was your origin story into this field?
At 19 years old, I made a decision that some women I thought decent women wouldn't do. I started working as a stripper in Mexico to be able to stay there while I was living there as a student abroad. I kept working in the industry on and off for a long time, about 6 years. And in the end of that, I was working as a call girl on Craigslist. And
What does that mean exactly?
What we think it is. It's having sex for money. I guess call girl is a way of softening the shame, right? It sounds more legitimate. But I was a prostitute. I had sex for money. And by then I was drinking alcoholically and I was having sex compulsively for money or for free. I mean, I was a hot mess. We're so afraid of the pain of shame to admit that we feel so much disconnection from the world, an unbelonging, an unworthiness that no one could love us. That's the feeling of shame, right? Who wants to admit that?
Yeah.
Who wants to admit that they're unlovable or that they fear that they're unworthy of love? You want to fight and pretend. But, I had to have that moment. And I did have that moment. 4 years later, I was walking into the school where I taught. By then, I had become a public school teacher. I'd completely changed my life. I was 4 years sober. I was active in a program of recovery, and I was teaching creative writing and art at an elementary school in the South Bronx. I was really good at my job. I was not particularly happy to go to work that day because it was early and it was the beginning of the school year and there's a lot of work. But that day I was just accosted by a photographer and a reporter from the New York Post, sort of demanding I account for the fact that I had at one point been a sex worker, that I'd become a public school teacher. And then the story came out. I did lose my job and it did devastate me. What I experienced that I didn't know then is called mass media humiliation.
One of the really fascinating elements of shame is how so much of it is about a fear of revealing the truth to our parents.
Right.
So what happened when your mom found out that you were a sex worker?
I think that fear is because we need our parents more than anyone to survive. Yeah, no matter who your parents are and how imperfect they behave, you still want their love. That's just biological. So to think that I displeased my mother, I knew from the start she would not approve. And I'll just have to hide it.
How long did you hide it from her?
2-3 years.
That can feel like a long time at that age.
Well, yes.
Because you're developing so fast.
That was in college. So I was in my
20.
20s when I was around 20 when I started. And then I was working at a female genital mutilation organization in London when she confronted me that she knew what I was doing.
And what was the confrontation?
She sent me an email. I remember getting it at the desk where I was working. She told me she was humiliated. She compared it to my father's infidelity. She knew that I was doing this just like she had known he had betrayed her in this way. She said at the end, "I hope you know what you're doing." And from then on, I pretended I did. Yeah, I do. I went straight into Fawn, appeasement.
Tell us about that, because in the book you talk about the sort of 4 elements of responding to shame, which a lot of us know. Fight, flight, freeze, but there's fawn. So tell us about that one, because that one was the most interesting one to me.
Fawning is just, when someone harms you or you feel hurt or you feel shamed by someone, you try then to appease, you win their good graces. And of course, as a daughter, I wanted my mother to be proud of me. And she wasn't. She told me she was humiliated by my behavior. And so I tried to overcompensate. I took her on trips. I used the money that I earned as a stripper to take her around Europe. And we just didn't talk about it. And I thought that would work.
And
it does not. It does not work. Just not talking about something does not work.
What was eventually your journey to accept that in order to live your truth, you may never win the approval of your parents? Like those two things are just sometimes not congruent.
It can still feel really painful. And that can be part of the truth, to know that someone does not love parts of you and they can love other parts of you, or they can love you imperfectly. It's not black and white. So to accept that I love my mother very much. She loves me in her way. And this is not something she chooses to understand about me. She doesn't have to.
You accept yourself and you accept her.
I do. I mean, to be completely transparent, I don't have a relationship with her today. And that is the way I can have a relationship with her. That's the way I can say, I love my mom for who she is. But it's a very boundaried relationship because she just doesn't have the skills that I need from a mom. And when it comes to accepting parts of myself that I have worked so hard to accept. I can only spend so much time with people who can't spend time with all of me.
You say in the book that your boyfriend didn't know you were a sex worker or that you were cheating for several years, but then he found out by reading your journals. What role did shame play in that whole story?
The thing about lying is once you start lying to someone about something, it becomes really murky. I was not in touch with my own moral compass. I didn't know right from wrong, and I didn't explore it because I couldn't explore the parts that I felt ashamed of, or I didn't look at that shame and think critically what was mine and what belonged to someone else. I couldn't do that work. And so my behaviors were so far from the person I wanted to be. The gap was so large. And when he confronted me and was in so much pain that I had caused, I felt like a monster. I was a monster. I had caused this perfect person, in my eyes then, an enormous amount of pain. It was all my doing. And I thought I could appease him. Again, I turned to Fawn. We stayed together for years.
After
We did.
he found out.
Me trying to make it better. Me trying to be a good person. It was so black and white. And that's what shame does. It really makes things so black and white. You are good or you are bad. And in my view, I was bad.
And you had to be good.
I just had to try to be good.
Did you feel like you had to owe it to him to stay in the relationship?
Absolutely. I had hurt him so, and he was willing to stay with me.
And that's what shame can do. It can force us to stay in relationships that we don't belong in because we think it's the best we can get.
That we have to try to fit ourselves into rather than that feeling of belonging where we're just entirely ourselves and accepted as who we are.
Melissa, one of the most relatable parts of the book and somewhat shocking was when you said you were ghosted after your first orgasm.
Okay.
I have so many girlfriends who say the exact same thing happened to them.
Really?
I think it's a very common experience.
That's so interesting. To be fair, it was pretty formative.
That's a very formative age.
It's very,
to have
very
something
young.
so vulnerable.
It's very young. So yeah, this person knew how to make my body feel good, and that happened. And then they like disappeared, as boys do. And that really felt like an abandonment.
I imagine that even though he had disrespected you and abandoned you, you probably were still wanting.
Oh, I was still attached to him. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when someone rejects you, in some ways, it does make them more
appealing.
Isn't that horrible?
It's a tale as old as time.
It really is.
Yeah. One of the portions in the book that was really interesting for me was about female humiliation. And I didn't realize until I read your book how prevalent it is in our culture. And it made me think of something, the recent Bachelor season with Taylor Frankie Paul that was canceled after this very disturbing video of her physically abusing her partner surfaced. And I don't recommend anyone watch the video. It's very disturbing. But there's a child present. It's her daughter. It's domestic violence.
Yeah.
What struck me was how quickly she was villainized. I mean, within a few days, the whole season was canceled. I think they had already shot everything too. So it's a lot of money that just was in a blink of an eye gone. But I know this stat, 94% of domestic violence is perpetrated by men, according to Women's Aid. I wonder, was she the villain or was she a victim? Is there another side of the story that we're not seeing from your perspective as someone that writes about female humiliation and shame regarding women in culture? What is your perspective on this?
Right. In the book, I talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and it reminds me a bit of that. I just assume interpersonal violence is incredibly complex. And when we are experiencing violence, we try to survive in the same ways we've been talking about. We fawn, we freeze, we flee or get away. And sometimes, yeah, we fight back. And it is, again, very shameful that we're not always our best selves, especially in moments or relationships that bring out the worst in us.
There's an interesting term that I think everyone should learn about. It's called reactive abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when the victim is pushed so intensely by emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, which is a real type of abuse that we
Right.
don't talk enough about,
Right.
to the point where they sort of just explode.
Right. Right.
And there are a lot of stories around when the police are called. It's the woman that becomes
that gets arrested.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
no, I mean, and that's why, like, I don't envy anyone in that position of having to, like, arbitrate those complex dynamics. We think of villains and victims as these, like, very clear-cut categories, and we think of that in ourselves as bad or good, right? But and that's how shame kind of delegates, right? This is what's bad. These are bad people. These are the villains. These are the victims. These are the innocents. These are the good people. But that is not the human experience. We behave badly. We have good qualities. We love people who hurt us. We hurt people who love us. Doing this work, and you probably have this experience, you work with people who've done really shitty things, right? But they're not shitty people. And that's why, again, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard example, like, her behavior was so imperfect, right? We don't like her.
Give us a quick overview of that.
The Johnny Depp Amber Heard?
Yeah.
Oh, God, it has been a while, hasn't it? So they were married, and then the marriage was rocky. They were divorced, and she wrote publicly and spoke publicly about the violence she experienced as his wife. And he sued her for defamation of character, and he won. And she had to pay him a lot of money. And then everything came out in court about their relationship and what a terrible person she was. And he orchestrated an enormous attack against her, and she was painted as this crazy woman. And what do we fear more than being painted as completely crazy? And she looked crazy. Just like I look crazy when I'm at my worst, at moments in my life. I'm sure we all do.
Yeah, but was the violence perpetrated by her, or was it reactive?
It was reactive violence, because what she was saying in the articles that she ultimately was sued and had to pay for having said was not untrue, I believe, as a survivor,
Right.
that she experienced violence.
One of the most frequent questions that I get talking about this subject all the time is about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I get that a lot too.
People always say Donald Trump has no shame.
Right.
You know, there's a difference between shame and guilt.
Sure.
I have read a little bit about his relationship with his father.
Yes.
Which, you know, I'm certainly not a therapist, and even if I was, I wouldn't be able to diagnose anyone. But, you know, based off of a lot of the research that I've done around how shame is oftentimes very much connected to our parental relationships.
Right.
It sounds like there was, or it seems like there was some sort of abandonment, maybe not physically, but emotionally that happened. We've had therapists on the show that say the abandonment doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It can be psychological. It can be emotional. It can even be something as simple as you crying as a child and your father telling you boys don't cry.
Right.
It's like an invalidation of feelings.
Right.
There seems to have been that going on. And my theory is that I think there's a lot of shame there.
Right.
There's almost no guilt.
Sure.
Because the guilt is productive. The guilt would signal him to learn from all of the things that he's done that have hurt people over time.
Right.
But the shame, I think, might force him to go even deeper and double down.
Right. Right.
on his decisions to,
Right.
have a
I think it's so deep. I think his ego's protected him so much. And I I think that is what can happen when we behave so shamefully. We just get further and further from the ability to feel.
Mm,
And it takes a lot of humility to even feel the shame that we carry.
yeah.
I don't think he's capable of that.
Well, at a certain point, if you do, it would shatter your entire
It
worldview.
does. It does. And again, that's the barn burning down. Sometimes it's done to us. We're humiliated and we see ourselves and have to decide what we embrace and what behaviors we truly feel guilt towards.
Yeah. You say women are more likely to feel ashamed of themselves than men. Why do you think that's the case?
So, researchers like Brené Brown find that women experience shame more frequently and more acutely. And it is shame's bound in expectations. A woman has to walk a very narrow line of permissibility. Can't be fat, can't be too thin, can't be too sexually permissible, can't be frigid, can't be too smart or bossy, but can't be too timid. There's this very narrow line of permissible womanhood that we're expected to fit ourselves into, and it's exhausting.
There's some really great research that came out of, I think, Boston College, several years ago, but it's like, what are the characteristics that men and women have
Mhm.
to fit into in order to sort of live out their gender roles? For women, the top four are, it's like thin, nice, agreeable, and I forget the word. It's like sexually loyal
Mm.
to their one partner.
Mhm.
And then for a man, it's like powerful,
Mhm.
um, and serious, and it's totally different. And the
Right.
ones for the women are, it's harder to meet those than for the men.
And a lot less fun. I wanna be powerful.
Exactly, yeah. So I love this word that you talked about, hympathy. What is hympathy?
When we feel sympathy for the perpetrator, who is male, rather than the victim, the female. And we see this again and again. The boys, was it Steubentown, the group of boys that raped a woman and that were just worried about their future. Instead of a woman who's been devastated by the actions of the male.
I was really young when the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton scandal happened. Thinking about it now, as someone that has written and reported about shame, I really understand shame to be sort of a tool that
Mhm.
society uses
Yes.
when it believes that you're making a choice that goes out of social norms.
Right.
And it's funny how we thought she was making a choice, but for Bill Clinton, it seemed like the attitude was like, oh, well, men are men
Right.
and men will be men, and that's just how they are.
The expectations are much different.
Yeah, like it
right?
wasn't his choice, but it was her choice.
Right.
Speaking of sexual abuse, is that only 2 to 8% of reported sexual assaults in America, this is the official stat, result in conviction.
Right.
It's even lower for people that go to jail. I had texted this to one of my girlfriends and she was like, oh, like women find out about that pretty young.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea. And I wonder, from your perspective, how does that impact our culture?
And that's reported. So think about all the not reported cases that are never brought to, there's never any sort of justice or feeling of reconciliation. We know from a very young age as women that we are unsafe and we are responsible for keeping ourselves safe. So if we are harmed, we are assigned responsibility for that harm.
And, speaking of that, like, what was the first message that you got about your body that you remember?
So one thing, I love that this book is more than memoir. I was able to interview 150 plus, mostly women. I asked the question, when did you know you were a girl? When I was told to cover up.
Mm.
I have a 6-year-old daughter. She's right at that age where to protect herself, she has to hide parts of herself in a way that her 8-year-old brother does not. I mean, we try to break these cycles as parents, but it is so conditioned within us. And some of it is just practical. It's impossible to do it perfectly, so I won't shame myself for being imperfect. But we're doing better.
Another term that I loved in the book was kinkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there was a term for this. So it made me sort of think about this in my own life. Tell us the term and what it means first, and then I'll sort of
So
tell
it's
you what
the
it means to
physical,
me.
mental, emotional labor of maintaining relationships, which is typically assigned to women, right? It's our job to, organize the potluck, do the community thing.
This term was so interesting to me because I have a relative who recently got married and has kind of fallen off. Like none of us really hear from him anymore. And I realize it's because his wife doesn't do the kin keeping and he just doesn't have the
So no one does
skills.
it?
No one does it. He's completely fallen off. None of us
Yeah.
know where he is or what he's doing. We don't have a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And it made me think about, even in my own family, how all the women are really in charge of that.
Right?
And even in my friend groups,
Mm-hmm.
if the woman isn't the one
Mm-hmm.
reaching out and making plans and creating community, driving community, it just doesn't happen.
And this is why groups of men don't have these close-knit, intimate friendships that they really crave.
And need.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we have a male loneliness epidemic.
For
Because
sure.
you don't have the skills as men to coordinate the relationships that you desire.
Why do you think that's the case?
Shame. Because one, that would be gay, right? Like, don't want to look gay by being
By
intimate
saying that
with
I
a
need
man.
relationships.
Yes, that's something. So basically, you're going to get some of the shame that women. You're going to be feminized. It's a feminine role, and you will appear somewhat feminine. So I think men are afraid of appearing vulnerable, also, and looking like they need relationships. A man is supposed to be stoic, independent, self-contained,
Powerful.
Yeah. Not to have those needs.
I really loved this part of the book. You surveyed your community on the last time they felt shame, and everyone responded incorrectly, which was so telling about the way that we talk about
We
shame.
don't.
What happened? Tell us that story.
We don't talk about shame. I mean, some people do. Some people really move towards me when I tell them what my book is about.
Yeah.
And some people are like, it becomes awkward real fast.
Give us the backstory of what happened here.
No, so I did these interviews with, and mostly organically, friends or friends of friends. When was the last time you felt shame? Or what is your experience with shame? Or really, the question was, where do you feel shame in your body? Like, what does shame even feel like? They'd give me a definition of shame, and it might have been correct, but they weren't like personally allowing themselves to be vulnerable to say, this is when I felt shame. We don't feel shame in our bodies, which is truly where we feel anything first. Because really, again, that is where feelings start. And the more we can identify a feeling, I feel shame in my legs, like they're going to just give way beneath
Tightness
me.
in my chest. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes here, which is like something needs to be said. Once we start to notice the feeling, it's like 3 steps before the behaviors. Whereas if you don't notice the feeling, we bypass the feeling and we go straight to behaviors to make us feel better. I'm going to shout at my husband. I'm going to go get drunk. We'll go through all of the classic ways of avoiding the feeling. rather than just being like, ugh.
What is your tightest definition of shame?
Shame is a feeling of fundamental unworthiness.
I think it's also a difference between who you are and who
Yes.
you think you should be.
Yes, there's that gap between this is who I should be or want to be, but this is who I am. And I either have to hide who I am and pretend to be who I should be, or I have to work really hard to be that. And that's actually what I found when I began the project. I have a lot of really successful friends who work very, very hard, very ambitious by all objective measures, just killing it. But they're not enough. That feeling of not enoughness, we don't think of as shame because we think, oh, we're just going to keep working harder, right? Just keep going to the gym and
To prove ourselves.
to get closer, we hope. But there's always that gap.
Yeah.
There's an immeasurable distance between who we should be and who we are. And that difference is shame.
Like an example would be, I think for me, growing up, it was like I wanted so badly to be the child of my parents that would get married in the Catholic Church and continue their legacy. But I just wasn't that person.
Even if you had hid yourself your whole life and done those things, there would be a part of you that knew that wasn't you. And so that's the feeling of shame. Sometimes we can even enact exactly what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we still know we're not that.
And to make up for that gap, I remember trying to be a straight A student.
Oh, right.
Trying to be, I was the commencement speaker at graduation. I wanted to do everything I could to try to close that gap.
To compensate. Yeah. No, when I was my most unhealthiest emotionally and mentally, I was perfect body, great job, very on paper, perfect. And that striving for perfection is really masking something profoundly diseased.
The fact that we don't accept ourselves for who we are.
Right.
When we want to interrupt a shame spiral, you say there's an acronym. Tell us what R.A.I.N is. What is that?
We recognize the feeling. So again, going into our body and going, whoop, that's shame. So we sort of acknowledge, okay, pausing, being with it, investigating it a bit. So if I have a trigger, if I'm uncomfortable with my body, I can think, oh, what messages have I internalized? And now it's going to start to loosen already. And then the last one is we can non-identify. We are not the shame. We are not that feeling. We are not even our behavior. We can make amends for what we did, knowing that we're not bad people for having done it.
Yeah.
So that practice is really, really helpful to interrupt a shame spiral. So you're not just behaving to avoid that feeling, but rather moving into the feeling. Because if you really get curious about shame in a moment like that, you can discover a lot about yourself and the human experience, which will really make us more empathetic people.
What is the cure to shame?
There is no cure to shame. It's not like something that's going to go away, like an infection if you just take the right pill. You don't try to cure it. You try to become curious. So when we feel shame, there's an opportunity to discover something about ourselves and our world, if only we can have the courage to stay there.
And think about it.
Just to stay, to feel it. Don't even go here yet. Just stay here for now and then go here and be like, okay, where did this come from? Who's reinforcing it? Do I want to reclaim something else? Do I want to interrupt this? Gently. Okay, Shane, shush. Interrupt it. Reclaim. If there is a gap, maybe we have to change our behavior.
Right.
And if there isn't, if the messages that are making you feel shame do not align with your values, then we let it go and we reclaim our values.
Shame is something that can truly just shape our lives in so many limiting ways. It can limit us from living our truth, limit our happiness, limit our pleasure. And one of the things that I loved that you wrote about is that it can also bring us closer to our greatest gifts. What was that gift for you?
For a long time, I was deeply ashamed of how lonely I felt and how profoundly I craved connection. And thanks to my discovery, everything, all of it, the journey and what it's led to knowing about shame, I have really beautiful connections with people. And it could be a barista. How was your day? And I'm honest and they're honest. And it feels so restorative. And it's just is like the meaning in life to me. To get to have those moments, that's priceless. That's what I always deeply desired and why I fought so hard to fit in for so long. That was so fruitless compared to just being myself. And that's the gift of being able to acknowledge when I'm experiencing shame and knowing how to use it as a way of connecting to others and finding the people who are really ready to live life out loud. I know how to find good people thanks to having the courage to be myself.
One of the things that shame had, one of the impacts that it had on me was like becoming hyper conscious of like people's moods and energies. Like I'm the kind of person when I walk in a room, for better or for worse, I can immediately tell like what someone's mood is, or if there's even a slight change in someone's temperature. But as I've grown older, I've like realized that is a gift because it's like being attuned with someone's energy. Yeah.
You can feel someone.
Yeah, exactly. I want to take us back to the beginning. You actually confronted the New York Post reporter.
One of them.
Who had written this hit piece on you. What happened?
I had started working on the book. And at some point, I realized there was this reporter who still kind of irked me because she was out existing in the world. And she was I was like Facebook stalking her, like hate Googling her.
Yeah, for sure.
And just measuring myself against her. And I just had a lot of feelings still. And whenever we have feelings, we pause and explore. And I just realized that a part of me just didn't feel repaired. So I messaged her. To her credit, she was responsive. She was willing to engage with me. What I had lived through was very painful, and she was a part of that pain. So I did ask for her to make it better. I called on her to do better.
Yeah.
She apologized.
Wow.
She heard me. She shared her context so that I could understand her better. It wasn't an excuse. It was just, so I saw her as a human, which I was able to. We're fine now. Like it relieved me. It relieved me. I mean, in the book, we talk about, calling people out or calling them in, which is this like progressive idea that we can educate someone who's harmed us. And then, and this is Sonia Renee Taylor's idea that we can call on people to do better.
That's a third one.
It's a third way. It's a third way. It takes less work. And it's a little gentler. So you're not, throwing both of your nervous systems into survival mode when you call someone out. It's a very scary thing for everyone involved. It's something gentler and yeah, I love it. And then people will meet you if they can. And if they can't, they're not your people. But if they can, it can be really restorative. And that was the experience I had.
What are you unshaming?
Okay. I have a lot of shame now around my marriage being imperfect.
Like where did that come from?
Oh, I think there's a lot of messaging that if your marriage is in any way unequal or unhappy, you married the wrong person. And like, you shouldn't tolerate that. if you're a feminist.
I see.
It's a
Okay.
feminist
Yeah.
message. There's a lot of feminist messaging. Like, it's
Yeah.
not hard. Men need to step up. There's a lot of like decenter men and don't tolerate bullshit.
Yeah. Be angry.
And I know a lot of like right now, like split lit is really in fashion.
What is that?
Divorce memoir.
Yes.
So
I've
it's like
seen that.
really cool to like be an empowered single divorcee, which is awesome because for so long it was a shameful thing, right? So we're reclaiming that. And at the same time, it's like really cringe to be married and monogamous and working hard in a relationship that's not always perfect. It's just hard work.
Yeah.
So I feel at times deeply ashamed that it's not the ideal.
You're unshaming the fact that you've chosen a traditional
Yes,
life path.
I am trying to let go of the imperfection in that relationship. I got really good at like my individually. Like my relationship with myself is on point, but my relationship with others, I'm shifting shame to him. He's shifting it back. I mean, it's not like I'm not as skilled. And to lack those skills is humbling.
I feel that. That's part of the unshaming journey. Yeah.
That is.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being here. I learned so much through the book. It was really eye-opening for me as a man to understand. Sometimes it can feel like when you're a man and you educate yourself on, or you become educated on just how much women go through or the different standards that women are held to, it is really, really eye-opening because as a man, you can kind of go your whole life without even thinking about those things. And I think it's made me a better friend to many of the women in my life. And I'm grateful for that.
Wonderful. Thank you for reading.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for watching our show, for coming to the Unshaming Dinner Party. Don't forget to subscribe to Unshaming wherever you are getting this podcast so you never miss an episode. And I want to hear from you. Tell me what topics you think we should unshame on the show. Email me at unshamingpodcast@gmail.com or comment below. You can DM me on Instagram or TikTok. I'm really trying to push the boundaries of what we think of as shameful. So you're definitely not going to want to miss next week. I'm actually a little bit nervous about next week's episode, but I'm really, really excited about it. As always, I'm Jordan Gonsalves, and this is Unshaming.